Go. So, good morning and a very warm welcome to this Explain Pain in the Clinic. My name is Joanna and I am Director of Noigroup Europe. And I'm joined this morning by my very good friend and Principal Noi teacher, Tim Beams. Morning, Tim.
Just warming my hands up.
Yeah, I know. Have you got a little heater there?
I do actually, yeah. It's just down here. Yeah.
Great idea. Tim has been a Noigroup teacher for well over 15 years. He has taught literally hundreds of Explain Pain courses to thousands of clinicians all over the world. He is an active clinician himself, specialising in complex and persistent pain. He is also founder of Le Pub Scientifique, which is an online platform for clinicians to learn about the latest developments in clinical practice and pain research directly from the pain specialists themselves. Tim will drop the link to Le Pub Scientifique into the chat because we will often reference it throughout this session. So do go over and check it out. They've got a really good podcast, new episode coming out a bit later on today. So Tim is also co-author of the GMI Handbook. That's the Graded Motor Imagery Handbook with David Butler and Lorimer Moseley. So for any of you that haven't been on one of these live sessions before, these are all about giving you a taste of Explain Pain and how to practically use it in your clinic. Now, some of you will have already done an Explain Pain course, and for those of you, these sessions will reinforce what you've already learned and extend certain areas. But if you're new to Explain Pain, it'll give you a taste of what we cover in the core courses. So just a couple of things to mention. Tim will be talking for about 20 minutes. If you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. We will be following those feeds throughout the session. The recording of this session can be accessed on our Noigroup Clinical Discussion Group YouTube channel. Bit of a mouthful there. And I will drop the link to that in the chat also. We also upload the recording to the clinical discussion group. This is a Facebook group. I would highly recommend you join it because there are Noi teachers in there answering your questions. There's also great content being posted in there, particularly from David Bolton, who is a very experienced Noi practitioner. So jump on over in there if you're not already a member and check them out. We'd love to have you. So today, Tim, we are talking about what happens when you can't see pain and believing without seeing. Could you just give us a little overview of what this means and what you're going to be talking about today?
Yes. So we're going to talk about pain as a hidden condition, if you want. Yeah. And why, as a result of it being hidden, there can be challenges that people are met with from family, friends, work, medical medical and how those challenges actually feed some of the issues, problems in the process of their recovery, and in essence, what we can do ourselves to first of all recognize what those might be, and then how we mitigate them, how we help them.
Okay,
Is that
great.
is that what I'm doing? I think that's what
Yeah,
we're
that is
doing,
what you're
isn't
doing.
it?
That's what we talked about
Yeah,
beforehand.
yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. So, so starting off, why is it a problem for a patient? This sort of idea of invisible pain, hidden pain.
Yeah, well, and let's just say it's not just pain, because there are other conditions. So someone who suffers with fatigue or anxiety or panic attacks, there are things that, I mean, there might be manifestations of that people can see, but you don't feel what that person feels, and often there's nothing visible that you can see as well, and as a result of that, people are often not believed.
Mm.
They are, and there are even, like, there's loads of different sort of terms that come with that as well, aren't there? If you think about them, And I remember learning about malingerers, for instance. So people will be listening here and just going like, "Oh God, malingerers." But you often hear people saying they're fabricating it, they're feigning it, they're exaggerating.
Mm,
Who are you to say that someone's exaggerating? I mean, it is kind of like a completely bonkers situation, isn't it? Where
mm,
you are telling someone that they're putting it on. I mean, there are so many different phrases actually when you really come up with it. Um,
mm,
that you might we've all been met with these things, with these messages from people, and it's all around like someone can't know what it is that you're experiencing.
mm.
So
So,
go on.
sorry,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, if a patient feels like that, how is that likely to impact the relationship that you have with them and their treatment and
Yeah,
their
well,
outcomes?
and the reason that we came up with this title was specifically because, like, I've last week or a couple of weeks ago, whenever we decided, I had a couple of people who said things along the line, "If only I had like a sticker that said I'm in pain," or "If only someone could see what it is that I'm experiencing, then they would
Mm,
know." And it's just such a common thing for people to hear, like if only, like they just want validation, they want someone to experience it. And actually
mm,
I'm recalling what it was. The a particular patient, she was saying, if only my husband, like, he doesn't really know, I mean, he tries his best but he doesn't really know, and I just wish he could see what it is that I'm experiencing. And you hear those sorts of phrases so often. So it's
mm,
not just the medical community that need to be educated. It's the general population. Like we just generally need to know a little bit more. And the other example was about someone being met with consistently with sort of disappointing interactions with other medical professionals, who were giving, and now whether or not said exactly those words, but they were giving the impression that they didn't believe what she had to what she was experiencing, and then she was coming away more distressed, feeling more vulnerable, like there was no hope out there. And some of the experiences, some of the symptoms, if you want, that person was
mm,
going through are typical for many people. They are quite unusual for you, which is probably what led you to come and seek some help. It's like, I'm feeling
mm,
this thing that doesn't feel right. It's a bit weird. I'm not sure it should be there. And it's those times that you just want validating, and someone to just listen to you, not pass judgment, just listen to you and listen to you at face value for, and create that rapport and the
mm,
support. And what we were talking about off air before we came on is lay some foundations for safety, because when people come to us, they are at their most vulnerable. And if you really think about it from that perspective, then we have many opportunities to foster some sort of safety for them.
mm,
Strip that away. When they're in a vulnerable position, how are they going to be left? And it's no surprise that you hear people in huge amounts of distress, suffering, anxiety fuel the process. So yeah,
mm,
that's what I'm thinking. I must say though, like if we really think about the world, then we're sort of like, well, I'm giving the impression from the world that I live in, which is in the UK, and I can't speak for everybody, culturally, geographically, that this is going to be the same. But in the world that I live in, we the people I'm surrounded by, I have been brought up in a sort of a scientific age, if you want, and a
Mm.
part of that approach is more of a positivist approach, which means that people are looking to test their understanding of the world through their observations of the world, and they give strength and validity from the things that they see and they can measure and they can quantify, and
Mm.
therefore the knowledge that they gain, the facts that they have of the world are through their are predominantly, a lot of it is through their observations. It's from their senses. So they build a huge amount of trust in their observation of the world through that process. So you can
Mm.
understand it. Like, it's not, we shouldn't be blaming someone that's the approach that they've taken for their spouse or friend or work colleague or the
Mm.
person coming to see you, but better to recognize that that is one way that I view the world. Whether it's the best way to view the world in that particular instance is another matter, because that's brilliant
Mm.
for some of the physical sciences. If you're measuring, so I mean, I don't know, like my daughter's doing some science experiments at the moment, so that's that, like, there's some validity there in those scientific experiments of the world, looking to see the interactions of one thing with another.
Mm.
But when it comes to a human being, we're messier.
Mm.
So we need a
It
different
seems
approach.
it seems to me, Tim, that it's so much bigger than just that throwaway statement that so that you need to believe, the importance of believing somebody. The impact on the individual is really profound, and the impact on your relationship with the individual is really deep and on their trajectory.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so many people have an input at different points in time, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
So, if we think about it, not in a sort of a godlike state, like I'm the only one who's going to have this, but in during during their life, during their journey, if you want, they're going to come into contact with so many different people, and
Mm.
let's see if we can leave them with a positive,
Yeah.
helpful, safe message, because they
Okay.
might see plenty of other people as well that have alternative messages as well.
So
I
that
want to
brings us
drop
on,
in.
Tim. Go on.
Sorry.
I
No,
was going to say
about
that
like,
brings us on to the second half. Really, is like,
yeah, because but
what do you do about it?
I want to sort of normalize, because like we're sort of being a little bit hypothetical here, but I want to just sort of think about the sorts of things, because as a therapist, I might give back some. Let's say I tell someone about the physical examination, or someone's had some sort of radiographic findings, and they're getting the report and you're trying to understand it. And a typical thing that you might say is, "Oh, brilliant, we haven't found anything." And in itself, if you really think about it, is, "Oh shit, well, I haven't found anything, so it must be really bad." What happens if they have? So the person in pain might have a positivist perspective as well. They're looking for right, wrong, black, right, yeah, black,
Mm.
white. So actually, just understanding how we communicate the messages around that we think might be safe, that aren't always met in that same way as well. So
Yeah.
there is there's that toing and froing, isn't there, within communication?
Because when you said that, I wasn't sure whether if I was the patient, I would think that that was a positive or a negative. Oh, we haven't found anything. Well, does that make them feel, uh, like they are making it up if you say we haven't found anything, or is that a positive that you're like, well, that's great?
Yeah, yeah, and I was speaking to a patient just before we came on, and she was saying, I saw this doctor. She was young, blah blah blah, and she said that she thought my shoulder looked really healthy. but I saw this other doctor and da da da, and like there people are met with all these messages, and it's difficult because you're having in your own mind you're having to make sense of everything that you're exposed
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
So as a clinician, what do you do with all this, Tim? All it just seems like a really sort of tricky, complex situation, and you've got to navigate it in that moment.
Honestly, the thing, and I am constantly working at this, is take myself out of the equation. Because and this is probably more difficult when we're with our families, isn't it? But because you have some sort of opinion, but it's your opinion doesn't matter. You like don't pass judgment. Just
Mm.
listen attentively and be curious and interested and believe what that person is telling you. And I have spoken to many groups about this, and I often have. But there are people out there who are making it up, and they're doing it because they want to get money from benefits and things. Like who, ultimately, like it's almost like so what? Yes, there might be some people who do that, and it
Mm.
makes me feel a bit sad that they're having to resort, if that is the case, that they're having to resort to that. Because imagine what their life must be like.
Very, very few really are
I mean,
doing
it's
it
going
for
to be
that reason.
it's going to be very few, but I also have my taxi driver that I use regularly, and he always tells me about friends who are doing this and that and trying to claim benefit here, and he's absolutely enraged about it, and
Yeah.
I can understand that, but take yourself out of the equation, be less judgmental, and if it's possible, be more curious, and for me, this is my personal experience. I found it really liberating if I can do that. And I do notice there are times when I become a little frustrated hearing what they've gone through or get sad because the story that they're sharing
Mm.
can often be really sad. Um, but it feels a bit more natural as well about being human in that moment. So I suppose in a way, what I'm saying is being able to be like that and legitimize and believe and support that person creates some of that safety. It takes away the battle that they might have had. And we often hear about the battle, the ongoing battle, and
Mm.
to prove that I'm ill. I mean, how ridiculous is that to prove that you're ill? Of being, can you be one of those safe people in that person's journey?
Do you have sort of a little sort of mental reel almost that you remind yourself of before you? You're very experienced, Tim. You've been doing this a very long time.
Oh, I have
With
it
what is this?
written
What does
down.
it
Oh, I
say?
don't
I
know. It
can't
doesn't
see it.
even coming up on my camera.
Oh,
There we
hang on,
go.
there we
Here we
go.
go.
Kindness, gentleness, curiosity, exploration. Do you stick that on your computer when you're
It's on my
meeting
computer.
people?
I read it before I see everybody. So yeah,
Do
it's
you
there. It's my,
really?
yeah, it's my mental note. I'm like,
Yeah.
I set myself up for my time with my patients, and this because we've already met each other today. We had a meeting. I stopped.
Mm.
I went off. I had 5 minutes. I prepared myself, and part of my preparation is a little meditation, and
Yeah.
and then I check in with like, how do I want to meet this person today?
Yeah. So you do have a little checklist of strategies that you prep yourself with.
Well,
So
it's my aids, like an aid memoir to me of how I want to meet this person and be in this time with this person. So yeah.
and do you have questions that sort of you'll use frequently with people to try and instill that sense of belief and curiosity and interest? I know that these may seem so like easy to you.
I know what you're trying to do, Joe. You're trying to
I
pull
know.
out of me some specific
Yeah.
thing that I say to everybody. I look, there are times when I say, I'm really sorry that you've been through this, and I just want to say I believe you and what you're telling me, and I am on your side. And there, so I might say things like
Mm,
that. But it depends in the moment what it is within that
of
story
course.
that's coming out, because I hear things that I feel quite distressed by, and a part of a validation process might be me sharing a little about how I feel. So I do say things like, just hearing what you've been through makes me feel angry and frustrated, and I can only imagine what it might have been like for you. So
Yeah.
I apologize for that journey that you've gone through so far, and I'm going to do my best to support and believe, and so there will be elements, but it has to be, to me, that it also has to be true. I'm not just saying it, I'm saying what I believe in that
Yeah.
moment. So this is why I would struggle to say, to answer that question, is because I don't want to
I
say,
know.
I will say these words in this order with these people when I'm met with that, because I don't believe that's being real.
But it does give an example. It does give an example. And there is exactly, Sarah, we have to bring our authentic selves, and I
That's, yeah,
completely
that's the
agree with that.
word.
But it does give an example, and it also gives people permission to be their authentic self. In that, and so Alexandra has just said, "Can you share that note again?" What does it say on it? So hang on, Tim, read it out to me. So it's
I don't know.
kindness.
Well, this, like, these are my personal values as I come and I sit down with my patients: kindness, gentleness, curiosity, exploration, determination, and integrity. So they're the how I'm meeting a session. But yours are going to be different. Like, everybody's are going to be different. So what is it? Who do you want to be in those moments? So please don't steal mine. But there might be
No,
overlap.
do.
And
Do.
I might add, like, these aren't the same as they were last year. So I had a
Yeah.
slightly different set of values that I felt I wanted to bring to each appointment as well. So yeah,
Yeah, and I love that, and that it is completely individual. And you have those prompts, and Alexandra says I won't steal them. They're just a good thinking point, and I get that completely. It does give you a prompt, um, to hear somebody like Tim, to hear what he actually does in his work, and it gives permission to others to think, actually, this is the approach I want to take, and I want these prompts to remind me. And I think it's just really important to share the sometimes the nuts and bolts of what you do, Tim, because we were talking about this before we came online. You've been doing this stuff a very, very, very long time, and the people that you see are very, very complex. And so, but equally, you may not be as far down your journey as Tim is in terms of experience or complexity, but Tim's complex. You also have, everybody else also has complex, don't they? Or whatever stage that they're on their journey. And these prompts are really useful to people. That's a permission thing, isn't it? To understand that what they're thinking and being their authentic selves in that clinical interaction is okay.
yeah, yeah.
It is okay.
It reminds you to be a human being as well, and I always
Yeah,
think, and it's exercises that we run with Explain Pain, isn't it? You know, how would you want to be met? You know, who would you
yeah,
want to be? And so, what would those features and characteristics of a health professional look like? You know, when things go really well, and what of those can you then take back into your clinic with you?
yeah. And Tim, you do spend a lot of time on this in the Explain Pain course, don't you? This whole sort of communication piece, being yourself, and it's the Explain Pain course as you teach it now is far less about just regurgitating pain science, much more about the communication piece.
Yeah, and there are times. I mean, again, this morning I've already been talking about, like, I'd offered some science, like, we could talk a bit about the science, and the patient I was with, and she was saying, actually, you know, I'm not sure whether I want to know about that because it scares me a bit, and that, so
Yeah,
in itself, like, you can offer it, it can be there, it can be a part of that repertoire, but there is sort of fundamental things that I want to get right, that I feel are even more powerful than the literal information sharing that you might offer.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, I mean, I think actually you've got to a really sweet spot with teaching the explain pain material now, because a lot of the science of it you can read away from the actual course itself, can't you? But
Yeah,
it's these kind of practicing these ideas and learning these, and as Sarah just said, being aware of your biases and assumptions are really important in these situations, and we've done sessions on that. We've done these clinical discussions around biases and assumptions, and Tim's just brilliant at all this communication technique, style, whatever you want to call it. But this is really the emphasis of what you're teaching now, isn't it? It's much further away from the actual science.
I've been thinking about this because I think I'm bringing a brand of Stoic philosophy into Explain Pain.
Yeah.
And that idea of being non-judgmental or being aware of your actions, because you can only control what you can only control you. You can't control the outcome and what's going on in the world around you.
Yeah.
So when we get more at peace with that is the case, it makes to me makes my life better, and I believe
Mm.
my relationships with my patients as well much better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Tim. I think that the point you've got to now in the sort of clinical skills that you're teaching are they give people a lot of confidence. They're geared towards giving people confidence to be themselves and authentic with their patients and drawing on these bits of expertise. It's really wonderful. And yeah, in life skills in some ways as well, like you were saying, it mirrors, doesn't it, into your life as well as your clinical work.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
correct.
I think we're going to wrap up there because it kind of came around naturally, didn't it, to the conclusion. But Tim, if anybody is interested in doing an Explain Pain course with Tim, can you just tell me us very briefly about the two formats of courses that you have coming up? So you've got a 3-session course and the summer school.
Is it 3 or 4 sessions?
Oh, sorry, excuse me. You've got a 4-session course and then you've got the summer school.
So, 4 session course, we have an opportunity to do a little bit of work between 2 weeks. So I'll send you away with some exercises, but there's discussion, there's some didactic work where you'll be listening to some lectures as well. So a sort of, an explain pain curriculum and a bit of pain science, communication involved in that. The longer formats, in terms of, I mean, the time spent together actually is very similar, but delivered over 8 weeks. You have an exercise and some reading to do each week, slightly less didactic, although there will be times when we talk, present specific topics around obviously pain science, communication, etc. But that actually is a really great opportunity to see how people use things in practice and get some feedback, and even you challenge yourself a little bit with some of your reading around the subjects. So that's the sort of differences.
Thank you
um,
very much. The next course is starting on the 16th of May. I've dropped the link in the chat there. All those links will come out to you after
can
this
I
session.
add
Yeah,
another
sorry.
thing? Yeah, well, look, explain pain delivered today isn't going to be the same as explain pain delivered in 2 or 3 months time, because we also have the flexibility to use the topics that I'm constantly exposed to as well. So I've had conversations with a brilliant psychologist yesterday and a
Mm.
sports doctor as well. So I'll be sharing, like, I can already hear what I'm going to be talking about this afternoon in the course is going to be different than it was 2 months ago because of the people that I'm talking to. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the flexibility of the explain pain courses. And yeah, it's great for me as well because I'm not talking that I'm not doing the same thing the same way every time.
Yeah,
It will be different.
yeah. That's, and you filter down what you're from what you're doing in the pub.
Yeah,
And often people who come on the Noi courses then go on and join the pub, because that sort of takes the science and the understanding and the clinical practice to yet another level beyond explain pain as well. So if you haven't checked out the pub, do. It's Tim's sort of, I don't know, it's your notice board of what you're most interested in at that time, aren't you? And so you'll get there's a symbiotic relationship between what he teaches for explain pain and also what's going on at the pub. So check that
yeah.
out too. Anyway, all the links will come out. The recording of this will be up on YouTube. So if you want to listen again to anything, it'll be there. And check out some of the previous sessions. There are loads there now across a vast array of different subjects. And thank you so much for joining us live today. We love doing these sessions. We love having engagement with our regulars and seeing new people come in too. And the clinical discussion group is just growing and growing and growing, which is just so encouraging to see so many people interested in what we're doing and also progressing all of the things that we talked about today. So thanks, folks, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Bye.